Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody! Welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean.
On this episode, we are going to be talking one thing and one thing only. What is it?
What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
Oh, Jim Mora, we are talking playoffs, and we are talking playoffs. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the Stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. If you don't want to mortgage your future to see the Blackhawks stink at the United Center, well, guess what? Less than 90 minutes away, you can go to lovely downtown Rockford, Illinois at the beautiful BMO Harris Bank Center and pay $10 a ticket to see the Ice Hogs play, and you get to see the future stars of the Blackhawks. So head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, this is the first time we've gotten to talk since the wonderful victory on Sunday. How are you feeling?
Well, I gotta say I'm pretty excited for Sunday. 3:40 Soldier Field. I wish I was going, but I'm gonna be probably watching at my local watering hole, so feeling pretty excited for this.
I would say I would like to be there Sunday, but it's going to be really cold.
Is that what there's? I read 40 the last time, but it was an outdated broad forecast. So
Really? I'm just judging by now. It's cold now. Well, let's see. What is the forecast here?
because I heard it was about 40, going to be 40, but maybe it changed.
Oh, yeah, you're right. It is. Huh. That's not so bad.
No,
We got to ramp up. We got to talk to Mother Nature and ramp up this cold weather to make our Philadelphia friends feel not so welcome.
oh, so
Give
bear
them the
weather,
Jared
huh?
Goff treatment.
Bear
Yes.
weather, huh? We're getting meatball
Yeah,
Sean
bear-
already. Oh boy.
We are getting meatball Sean. Bear weather. We need to get the bear weather. You know, when the snow is coming down, these guys, they don't want to play. Philadelphia doesn't get that cold. We got to have the bear weather.
This is going to be a long show.
So, let's start off by just going through this Vikings game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The vast majority of sports writers, sports talking heads, etc., the majority of them just penciled in the Vikings that they were going to win this game and they were going to go to the playoffs and come to Soldier Field and play the Bears in the first round. Is that a fair statement that the majority of people said that they were going to win?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I read the Tribune predictions. Every single Tribune writer had the Vikings winning that game. Every single one.
I mean, I would understand that if they decided to sit Mitch Trubisky and sit Khalil Mack and sit a lot of the key players, then by all means. But guess what? Matt Nagy is not taking that foot off the gas, played the starters almost the entirety of the game, and it was the Vikings that decided to not show up and play the game.
Well, I mean, you got to give the Bears a lot of credit. I think that they did the right thing by getting a good hot start with all their starters in there. Here's my whole thing. I liked seeing them play to win the game. I really did. Because Joe Buck and Troy Aikman over and over, oh, when are they going to pull the starters? It's like they wouldn't stop asking about it. And look, maybe this is a meatball opinion. I don't know. But I did not like the idea of giving up on that game, letting the Vikings win, and then having to face the Vikings a third time at Soldier Field. Say what you want about Kirk Cousins. Say what you want about that. Say what you want about the recent history for the Vikings at Soldier Field. It's not good. But those kind of things, in my opinion, come back to bite you. So that is why, regardless of the matchup, and who knows, maybe we do regret letting Philly in. That's a whole other story. But frankly, I'm just kind of glad the Bears just finished off the Vikings when they had them down. They just finished them off.
Here's my thoughts on it is, I mean, number one, you're right. I don't like to see a team a third time in a season because it's really hard to show something new. They know who you are. They know what you're going to run, and it's all about execution. And, granted, the Bears have a better team. You just never know. It's that Vikings defense is good. A fumble picked up and run for 6, blocked punt. Those are the types of things that can just completely alter the game and swing momentum back to the Vikings. And you could dominate them for, all 8 quarters that you played them before, and you could dominate them 3 quarters of this game. And if they get, a couple of lucky breaks in a game, in the fourth quarter, just, your season's done. But on the other hand is, I guess it's not a different hand, but my other thought about this is if you want to win the Super Bowl, you can't just sit there in the first round and go, well, I want to dictate who's going to be the easiest opponent to go on. Because ultimately, you've got to beat a lot of good teams to make it to the Super Bowl. And once you get there, you're going to have to beat a good team. So you might as well just line them up, because if you can't beat somebody at home in the first round, then you shouldn't be Super Bowl champion. You're not a caliber of a Super Bowl champion, and you need to regroup. So if it's the Vikings or the Eagles, or if it would have been the Seahawks that came to Chicago, the Bears need to line up and beat whoever's in front of them, because the Rams are not going to make it easy for them when they go to Los Angeles. They're going to look at what happened when they went to Chicago, and it is going to be a different game because it's a home field advantage. The weather is going to be better, and not to be a meatball, Jared Goff was not wanting to play in that cold weather, and it's going to be a different animal when it's 60 degrees in Southern California. So
absolutely,
this is going to be a completely different fight. And if you're going to beat, if you're going to win the Super Bowl, you've got to beat the Rams. You're going to have to beat now the Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champion. You'll most likely have to go to New Orleans and beat the Saints for a chance to go on and play whoever wins the AFC, which I think the money odds are the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's a tough road ahead of you. And so, what's the point of easing up on that first round, because you got to win them all.
Absolutely. And I mean, what kind of message does it send to the Vikings if you decide to take it easy middle of the game, and then they're probably thinking, well, they're underestimating us. So if they come back and win and then they play you again, they're going to remember what happened week 17. And look, maybe some of this is overblown, but remember the last time the Bears made the playoffs and they didn't eliminate a certain NFC North team in week 17 when they could have?
Mm-hmm.
You remember what happened?
I do. I very much remember that.
So you know what? I think it was for the best that the Bears just finished off the Vikings, and whether it was a better matchup next week or not. Now, if the Bears still had to play the Vikings next week, I'd still feel pretty good about it. I mean, Kirk Cousins couldn't do anything yesterday or 2 days ago. He couldn't get anything going.
I mean, honestly, I'm not that nervous about the Philadelphia team coming to town. This is a completely different Philadelphia team than was last year. Last year, they were just a much better team and more well-rounded, and they got a lot of breaks. And this team is not the same. They've really struggled. They really struggled to make the playoffs. They had to get help the last week of the season in order to make the playoffs. They're coming to Chicago. And, I get Nick Foles had magic, lightning in a bottle last year, but you know what? Joe Flacco had lightning in a bottle before, but are you afraid of Joe Flacco if he were to come to town? No, you wouldn't, because he got benched for a guy that completes 50% of his passes.
And he's going to be facing probably the best defense he's faced in a while, because I'm trying to look back at the last few Eagles games, because obviously they had to win a lot of games and get a lot of help to make the playoffs. Looking at it now, so they did beat a Houston Texans team and they did beat the LA Rams, so they have beaten good teams. I don't want to take away from that at all. But, the Bears defense right now looks top notch. So, I think the Bears have a great chance to, shut down another guy who's had recent success. And I don't know really what I know he's going to be starting, but I don't know how he's feeling. I know he had that rib injury or whatever. I know there's nothing broken, but will that have an effect against the fierce defense? We'll see.
Absolutely. It's you have nobody knows what Nick Foles is feeling like other than Nick Foles.
Right.
He left that game. That was a must win for them to make the playoffs, and he left. And I granted they were up fairly significantly. They up like 20 something at that point.
And the Redskins weren't going to score anything.
No, the Redskins were on, fans playing quarterback at this point. But wouldn't give Colin Kaepernick a call. But I think they knew they were going to win. They didn't need him to come back in. But still, he left that game. He did not come back. He went to the locker room. They were not certain what happened, if there was anything broken, anything seriously wrong. Nobody knew, and for like 2 days. So it's not like, it was, they took him back to the locker room and he was fine. They did an X-ray, he's fine. It was, they really did examinations. So that means he's probably still in pain. Rib injuries are painful. So who knows what they're going to get with him, and who knows what one hit by Khalil Mack is going to cause. And how is that going to affect the way he throws?
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be a lot of factors in this game.
Absolutely. I could just tell you flat out that if you're expecting Nick Foles to throw for 477 yards against the Bears like he did against Houston, you're sadly mistaken. It's absolutely not going to happen.
Now, going back to that game against the Vikings, the one thing I really wanted to point out, and this does relate to next week. In my opinion, there's three major questions going into the playoffs that a lot of people have, including myself, that maybe we could kind of gauge our level of concern based on this last game. The biggest questions: Trubisky, the kicking, and really just the inexperience as a whole. Because look, a lot of these guys have been in the playoffs before, but when you're on a new team with a number of guys who haven't, it's different. It's not exactly the same. I think that what the Bears showed in Minnesota is that they can win on the road. And granted, this is not a road playoff game coming up. It's at home, but I do think that does speak for something, because I think it was their best road effort of the year. And yeah, I'm talking over that Bills game, but the Bills are terrible. This was still a worthy opponent in a very hostile environment. And the Bears really had full control of that game. And Mitch Trubisky, yeah, there were some rusty things, in the first half. There were some missed throws. There was the clock management. But if you look at that last touchdown drive they had to put the game away, those throws on third down to pick up first downs, that long, it was basically, they were killing the Vikings via little paper cuts. And if you think Trubisky can be that kind of guy in the playoffs with their defense playing the way it is, I think you feel a little better. I don't know what your thought is on that, but there's a lot of questions with Trubisky, but I think it was at least promising to see him put together a really nice drive towards the end of the game and some other few nice drives as well, even though there were some mistakes.
There were missed plays, missed throws, but I wouldn't say anything Mitch did was there were mistakes.
I think the biggest mistake was probably just that clock thing. That was just weird. You know what I'm talking about.
Which clock thing?
It was where he didn't see the play clock, and they had to take the time out.
I'll give him that. Yeah, there was a couple times there was where there was either a delay game or they had to call a timeout or really close. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that. But other than that, really, he played a really smart game. They played it very conservatively, being on the road in a loud stadium. They ran the ball a lot to take the pressure off of them and ran effectively. And whenever it was third down, he was great on third downs, flat out. And you look at his third down percentage and his quarterback rating in third downs, and it was fantastic. So, I mean, what more can you really ask of Mitch Trubisky?
He took the game, put it on his shoulders, and he put it away essentially because he picked that last drive. There were several times they had third down and he was able to find his guy to move the chains.
And I mean, this is a stat that I really like is if you look when Minnesota was blitzing, Mitch Trubisky was 7 of 10 for 103 yards and 103.3 quarterback rating under the blitz against a top 5 NFL defense.
Yeah, again, the national media and other people can't make excuses saying, oh, it was a bad defense, yada, yada. This is no slouch. I mean, I think Mitch Trubisky and the Bears as a whole, I thought they looked almost infinitely better in this game than they did in the other Vikings game at home. I really do.
Absolutely. I mean, partly it was the offense was, for the most part, was much more, I don't even know the word for it. In sync, maybe. They were more deliberate, I guess, is they decided what they were going to do. They were going to play a conservative offense. They were going to run the ball more. They were going to not take as many deep shots. But it was very deliberate in the offense. And there was a lot of pre-snap penalties, which they got to clean those up. But it was the defense that came through and just beat the will out of the Vikings. And that was, the Vikings defense never really quit. But this is going into that game. Just
flat out beat them.
Yeah. Going into that game, the Minnesota Vikings defense was number 1 in the NFL in number of sacks that their defense got. Number 1 in the NFL going into week 17 in a home game for them against an opponent that they needed to beat to make the playoffs.
Must-win game, yeah.
And they never sacked Mitch Trubisky. Not once.
No, they didn't. They didn't. And you know what? Kind of related to that, I think you saw the immediate difference of having Kyle Long back.
You know, if you would have asked me after he got injured, it was the Jets game, if you would have asked me how big of an impact losing him to this team would be, I would probably have not thought as much as until I saw him come back in this game and what he was able to provide to that running attack and just the fire that he lit under his teammates and just the sheer dominance of a very, very good Minnesota Vikings defensive line. And he looked fantastic. And if that's what you're going to get next week, you know, the Eagles are going to be in trouble.
And, you know, kind of also related to that as well, you know, you mentioned the running game. I think if you have Kyle Long doing what he's doing and you have Jordan Howard to continue to do what he's doing, that's could be another problem right there. Because Jordan Howard had another very good game. very productive game. And you saw that big, what was that, a 40-yard run? That one big run by Jordan Howard. Well, Kyle Long opened up that hole, and he was able to burst through it.
42-yard.
42 yards. Yeah, I mean, that set the tempo early. That play right off the bat set the tempo for this game early. The Bears were going to pound you. They were going to get on the board quickly. They were going to take the crowd out of it. It set the tempo.
And they started the game with a run behind Kyle Long. That's how they started the game.
Mm-hmm.
Is they said, we've got our guy coming back from injury, and we are going to run right behind him, and we're going to set the tempo that way. And that's what they did. That touchdown drive with the 42-yard Jordan Howard run you were mentioning is they capped off with a 5-yard Jordan Howard touchdown run. There was only one pass on that entire drive. There was only one pass.
It's kind of what we've been waiting to see for a while, and we thought we may not see it all, but we are finally seeing it. A much more use of the ground game and, using Jordan Howard as the power back. We're seeing more and more of that. And I think it's nice. I think it's really good. There's more mix up here, and you're seeing Jordan Howard score a majority of the Bears' touchdowns. I mean, you look at the touchdowns they've scored offensively. A lot of those the past few weeks has just been giving the ball to Jordan Howard and just letting him pound it in. So we're finally seeing Nagy use the run game a little more, and maybe he's finally finding that really good balance.
I'm still worried about the balance because there are still stretches. I mean, this was probably the most run-dominated game that we've seen with Matt Nagy as the head coach of the Bears.
Absolutely. There's no question.
But there were still stretches of this game where they just disappeared from the running game, or they tried to switch and go with Tariq Cohen, or I think it was Taquan Mizell, but they tried to switch it up, and for a spell they just completely forgot about the run again. And that's the one thing I worry about, because in the playoffs you're going to want to control the clock, and you're going to want to establish the running game, and it's going to open up the pass game for you. And that's really what you want, is you've got a young quarterback. And I know we've seen really great strides with Mitch Trubisky. And if you really watch Mitch Trubisky on film, you're going to see that it's starting to come together for him. It really is starting to come together for him. And there's still mistakes. Absolutely, there's still mistakes, but there's so many things where you're like, oh man, this kid's got it. He's figuring it out. And that you want to take the pressure off of him by making that safety not cheat towards the pass, not jump routes. He's going to have to be honest and play the run, or at least the possibility of the run. And that's what Matt Nagy's going to need to do. He's going to have to take pressure off of his young quarterback. He's going to have to maintain the run, because if you establish the run like you did in the first half of that Vikings game, you're going to be tough to beat in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's why they did such a good job of setting the tone early. Like you said, it was just one passing play and a bunch of running, and it was a very successful drive that ended in a touchdown.
Let's see. What else with this offense is you had a Kevin White sighting.
And that was a nice catch, too.
He had another.
I was so happy.
He did have that drop, which was bad. But we'll talk about the big Kevin White play that in a little bit, because I want to. It's part of a referee theme that I want to discuss.
Yeah.
But after that touchdown drive where Jordan Howard led the way with the 42-yard run, the 5-yard touchdown run, they only had one pass. There were several drives after that where they were pass-only drives. And that's just the part where you're just like, Matt Nagy, stop forgetting about the run. I tweeted it semi-jokingly, but I was like, they need to have an assistant coach that just stands behind Nagy and goes, Jordan Howard. They really need that guy. I mean, I'll be that guy. I'll just stand behind the sidelines, give me some Bears swag, and I'll be like, hey, Matt, Jordan Howard.
wonder how much they'd pay you for
I would do it for swag. Let me put on.
just for swag.
Yeah, let me put one of those, Matt Nagy visors on. Get one of those, a sweatshirt with a vest over it. Maybe one of those Bears parkas. I'm good. You give me that, I'm golden. You don't got to pay me. I'm good.
All right, that's fair.
I'll do it for
Fair.
college credit.
Yeah, there you go. It's an internship. It's the Matt Nagy internship.
Let's see. What else?
We gotta talk about Wims, right? We gotta give some credit to that guy.
Yeah, is Javon Wims was undrafted rookie, did some nice things in the preseason. I think Bears fans were very excited about him, but like just watching him play, it wasn't. There's sometimes those guys that are like the preseason heroes or the training camp heroes that we fall in love with as Bears fans, being full meatballs. And like there's those guys who are like, oh man, just this guy, it's usually a quarterback, but there's wide receivers and running backs like Ryan Nall. Oh man, Ryan Nall, get him on the Bears and he's gonna run for 1,500 yards. And the guy hasn't, I don't even know if he's on the practice squad still, but this is a guy that you just watched him and you're like, I honest to goodness really like what I'm seeing from him. And this is a guy I honest to goodness think if you would have had the wide receiver talent that you did last year and it went forward this year, Javon Wims would be a starting wide receiver.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the confidence I have in him, but he's young. There's still things he's got to learn, and he's not getting the opportunity because look at the talent ahead of him. But there's Bellamy, who they like because he's a veteran. You've got Allen Robinson, who's your big money guy. You've got Taylor Gabriel, who's established in this league. You've got Anthony Miller, who you traded up to go get in the second round. So there's a lot of talent ahead of you. And when he got the opportunity here, he made the most of it. I really liked what you can see from him. And it really gives you confidence that if Allen Robinson's not able to go this week, which I don't think that's going to be the case, you're going to not feel worried because he's a guy that can go in and make big catches and work with this first team offense and make things happen.
He made some really nice catches yesterday. Unfortunately, he made a catch that took a cheerleader out, but luckily she was okay. That was kind of scary for a second, but you remember that play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that looked scary at first, but yeah, he made some great catches, and I got to give him a lot of credit.
There was another play that we'd mentioned before about Mitch Trubisky and the play clock, and really had some problems. And I understand if you're a young quarterback and you're on the road in a loud stadium, especially a dome. Domes tend to be louder than outdoor stadiums. But it's loud. You can't hear what's going on. You're, putting extra effort into trying to hear what your coach is saying into your helmet communicator. You're, extra, time to try to relay the plays to your teammates and get set and try to read the defense, blah, blah, blah. And it's just being loud makes it that much harder. So I get that there was an issue, but there was too much of it. There was too many plays where that became an issue. And there was one where it was 3rd and 7. You got the delay of game. And on the next play, you went up and you had to call a timeout because you were about to get another delay of game penalty. Back-to-back plays.
That was ugly.
And that's just something that can't happen. And at some point, I think Matt Nagy, went up to him and was like, hey, listen, we can't have that. You gotta look at that clock over there. Really pay attention to that. And there was one play in particular where the play clock, this must have been the difference between that fraction of a second between the clock is on the screen and the actual play clock, because it went down to 0 and they didn't call a play or a penalty on Mitch Trubisky. So it must have still been before the clock went 0 on the actual clock. But on that play, Mitch just barely got it off. And it went from being what I thought was going to be a 5-yard penalty and brought back on a 3rd and 6 is Mitch Trubisky throws a 44-yard pass to Taylor Gabriel, which we thought was a touchdown, but ended up being at the 1-yard line. And it was basically Mitch Trubisky snatching one from a penalty to, the ultimate in reversal of roles there, from a 5-yard penalty to make it 3rd and 11 to 1st and goal from the 1-foot line.
That was one of the nicest throws I think Trubisky's made in a while. And I mean, I've been very complimentary of Trubisky overall, but he's been making the simpler throws and doing things a lot less, it's a lot less fancy. It's just, routine stuff, more conservative play. But, that was a really, really nice throw.
It was absolutely a really nice throw. And I thought we saw a lot of nice throws from Mitch Trubisky in this game.
That was by far the nicest, I would say. It was,
But let's see what else. There was after the touchdown by Tariq Cohen, and Cody Parkey had already missed a PAT in this game. You had Matt Nagy, clearly we've seen this before. After Parkey misses PATs, we see him go with the 2-point conversion, and they lined up. And this has been a theme. When they line up for the 2-point conversions, they put defensive players in. And this was a play where it was Prince Amukamara did a fake jet sweep, and there was a pass to Nick Kwiatkowski.
Yeah, and he hauled it in too. He was well covered, but he was able to haul it in.
Absolutely. He really did a good job. It was a nice catch. I mean, it was a body catch, but he hauled it in, tucked it away. Nobody was going to knock that out. And it was, absolutely a really well-designed play. And it goes back to something we said before, is honestly, I can't think of another play caller in the NFL that's more dangerous within the 10-yard line than Matt Nagy. It's absolutely, he's a complete just mastermind, because you never know what's going to happen.
I know, it's pretty crazy. I mean, let's look at the past few weeks. We had a 2-point conversion to Nick Kwiatkowski, a linebacker. Then we had the touchdown throw against the Rams to a backup lineman. That was probably my favorite highlight of that game. And then we had Akeem Hicks pulling a refrigerator Perry a few weeks ago. So you got to love this creativity. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And, speaking of Matt Nagy and his play calling ability, is I don't know if you follow Dan Orlovsky on Twitter.
I think so. It's hard to keep track of who I follow these days.
So I don't know if anybody out there remembers, he was the backup quarterback for the Lions. He was a career backup as a quarterback. But as a Twitter analyst, and I think he works for ESPN now, he's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he sits there and he will break down the play, slow motion, walk you through what's going on. And he showed one, and it was what was the game before the Vikings? The 49ers?
Yeah, the 49ers.
Yeah, it was the 49ers game. And there was a play where out of one formation, the wide receiver ran a route, and the cornerback undercut the route. Is absolutely just undercut it, expecting Mitch to make the throw, and Mitch made the throw, but and it was a nice throw, but it was not in a place where he could catch it. But it was that cornerback was going to bite, and Matt Nagy saw that, which is amazing that he sees that while he's still play calling. He sees the undercut of the route, and later on goes to the same formation, but the wide receiver, instead of going to that same route, where on the first one he stopped and turned, and then went in a skinny post, and the cornerback tried to undercut it again, and it ended up being a big play because he saw what that cornerback tendency was and used it as a weapon against him, which was incredible. When you're watching the game live, I guess I'm not seeing that, and that's something you got to go back and watch the film on. But when Dan Orlovsky broke this down, you're just like, holy cow, man, you really appreciate Matt Nagy and his attention to the detail, not on film later on and applied later. This is in game where he's seeing this, processing it, and using it as a tool, a few minutes later.
Yeah, I think Dan Orlovsky, I think I saw him on ESPN once. He wasn't talking about the Bears, but he was talking about, I think it was, they were revisiting like the Super Bowl, the Trey Burton play in the Super Bowl last year. I think he was breaking down that, and like you said, the detail he goes into is pretty remarkable. And I think it was that play. I can't remember for sure, but yeah, to me, he was always the guy that ran into the back of the end zone and went out of bounds. But, hey, he's a heck of an analyst. You remember that play, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's really great to see an offensive mind on this team as the play caller, and really feeling confident that you're not going to go stagnant. You're going to keep the wheels moving and really, really test the defense with your offense.
Yeah, for sure.
But there's a couple other things I want to talk about before we get to refs. And this was just some notes on pre-snap penalties. First drive, there was almost a delay of game. There was, let's see, there was a delay game on the third down. There was illegal shift on Trubisky on the one play where he went out to the wide receiver. There was the fourth down punt where they were offsides. It was just a lot of mental mistakes that you're still seeing that are really frustrating.
Yeah, and you don't want to see a lot of those next week.
No, you can't see those going forward. I mean, you might be able to get away with some of those next week because you're at home against I know they're a hot team in Philadelphia, but they're a 500 road team. You're at home with the best defense in the NFL. You might be able to get away with a few of those, but in Los Angeles, especially if you go to, or when you go to the Superdome, New Orleans, you're not going to be able to get away with those things. You're going to have to be flawless.
No, yeah, you can't have too many dumb penalties like that. And, I'm not too worried about the whole play clock thing like we saw last week. I think there was just some confusion there, and I'm sure they're going to be addressing that. But, it's just some of the nagging penalties that you'll see is probably a bit more concerning. But, at least the Bears aren't like the Lovey Bears where it was, you pretty much had a bingo card for every first quarter on how many and what penalties they would commit and the Lovey challenge flag. So, hopefully it doesn't get to anything like that.
But I do want to address before we start talking about the defense next week, I want to talk about the referees. Because I know there's sometimes we'll nitpick a play here and there, but these referees in this game were absolutely abysmal. It was to the point where, I don't know if you caught this, but Troy Aikman said it was nauseating.
Yep. A lot of people are actually talking about Troy Aikman's comments, like, on the radio and some articles I read. A lot of people are talking about that, and I got to kind of give props to Aikman for kind of speaking his mind on that stuff.
Absolutely is, it was so blatantly bad. The phantom roughing the passer call that led to the touchdown drive. And there was the one touchdown drive by the Vikings, which ended up making the game seem closer than it really was.
They shouldn't have even had that touchdown. You put an asterisk next to that
It
touchdown.
was ridiculous, but it started off with, it should have been a punt from, basically their own end zone, but there was a phantom roughing the passer call, which I watched it again and again. I'm like, I don't see this.
He didn't even put him on the ground.
Yeah,
he was still standing, and he was just letting go of the ball. And I think that's when Aikman said, "I'll give up. I'll give up."
And then there was a bunch of bad calls, but the other just absolutely infuriating one was when they called the holding call on Kevin White, but it was the defensive player that had a hold of his jersey and was yanking him to the ground, and they called the hold on Kevin White. I'm like, how do you hold and while you're pushing somebody to the ground? I'm like, the physics of it just doesn't work. The anatomy, this is not a Mission Impossible where you can defy the laws of science. Like, there was no way that was a hold on Kevin White. It was a hold on the defensive player that they absolutely blew.
And they were driving too. The Bears were driving. If that wasn't called, they'd be well in the Vikings territory. They easily, probably at least, well, maybe not easily, but with the way things have gone, but they may get a Cody Parkey field goal or they score another touchdown. And if that were the case, the game wouldn't even be close at any point.
Not even
really.
Close. And it was funny because on top of that being just an abysmal call, a 100% wrong call, not even like, a matter of opinion. It was just a dead wrong call. Is the spot.
Yeah.
It should have been 10 yards from the spot of the penalty, and they brought it back 15 yards. They brought it back 10 yards from where the play started. So it was a wrong on the referees, and you wish that the NFL would hold these guys accountable, because you're not allowed to criticize them.
I know.
You cannot. The only thing you can do as a grievance is the team can can file a complaint against the league, and at best they'll go, yeah, you were right, but we're not doing anything about it. They just
right, exactly. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't do anything.
All it does is just calls it into, points it out to the NFL that these guys sucked, but they're not going to change the decision on it. It's not going to change anything that happened in the game. Even if it was the last play of the game and you caught a touchdown pass and they said it was not a catch or there was a penalty and it negated it, and that was absolutely, the game changer, they wouldn't change the outcome of the game. It's just, tough. They made a mistake, tough. And that's that.
Yeah, I mean, it's what exactly is filing a grievance going to do? It's not even worth the time, pretty much.
Yeah. So it was frustrating, and the NFL has a real problem because the officiating this season has been the absolute worst officiating I've seen in my entire time of watching football, which is going on 4 decades. And other than the asterisk is the replacement refs. Other than the replacement refs, this is the worst officiating I've ever seen. And it's It's across the board. It was just really amplified in this Bears game, but it has been across the league where you're just like, what are they doing? And I understand that a lot of longtime, well-respected referees retired at the end of last season. But this is the NFL. They still don't have full-time referees. These referees have other jobs that they take time away from to do this. Your referee should be full-time. When you're not in season, they should be watching film, going to hone in their craft. There should be simulations. There should be all kinds of things for them to be better prepared for the season and to make correct calls. There should be tests. All right, well, watch this play. What are you calling anything? And no, that's not how we want to call this. Things like that. That's what these guys should be doing in the off season and during the week between games. Is coaches work during the in between games. Players work in between games. Everybody works in the off season. NFL refs don't. They just show up on their Sunday with their little uniforms, and then the rest of the time they go to their regular job.
Yeah, this year has been it's been bad, and it's not just the Bears. It's not just me trying to complain. It's everywhere. There's mind-boggling calls everywhere. And yeah, I mean, yesterday's game, the Bears got the beneficiary of one call that I can remember. I think it might have been roughing the passer that was kind of garbage, but there were tons that went against the Bears, like we just mentioned, that were complete utter garbage. And you don't want to see your team or the potential of your team getting screwed over by a bad call, especially going into the playoffs. Because look, that game could have been completely changed if the Bears didn't retake control. Because when the Vikings got that call on Kevin White, they got the ball back, and then they were able to drive down and score thanks to a few more questionable calls. You got to give the Bears a lot of credit for being able to come back and take control back of this game. Other teams of the past would have just kind of folded and would have fallen apart. I guarantee you, if the Bears were doing the same thing this year in this game as, say, last year's John Fox game, I guarantee you the John Fox Bears lose on Sunday like 27-13.
Probably. There was one more play is when they got on that drive where the Vikings scored their only touchdown. There was the one play where it went down to fourth down, close to the goal line, and the ref spotted the ball, and then they moved it forward like another foot after where they spotted it. After the wide receiver was complaining, he just picked the ball up and moved it like a foot. And I'm screaming at my television. I was like, "What? Why are you doing that? You spotted it at a certain point. If it's going to be moved, it should be a Vikings challenge." And he just moved it because the wide receiver told him to move it, and he moved it forward. It was infuriating. And then you have the bonehead play by the Vikings head coach where he throws the challenge flag after. It was just absolutely infuriating, that whole drive, because it couldn't have gone any more in the Vikings' favor by bad referee calls, and they were all concentrated on that single drive. But
I was livid when that was going on. That was the only time during the game I was legit mad.
I was calm the rest of the game. I was really calm. And that drive, I lost my mind. I'm throwing things. I'm screaming at the TV. I went full meatball.
So did I. When they scored that touchdown, I slammed my fist on the ground. Yeah. But other than that, I was like you. I was pretty calm because they had control of this game when the referees were calling the game and not making horse crap calls, and the Bears were playing well. They had full control of the game. And I know it sounds so biased to be like, "Oh, it was the refs," but come on. That Vikings touchdown drive was 100% ref aided. There's no question about it.
Yeah, when Troy Aikman, who doesn't like the Bears, is talking about how it's making him sick, the officiating, then we're not coming out of left field. And it's not just us. I mean, you look at really well-respected Bears writers, and they're writing the same thing. They're like, I don't want to be that guy, but wow, this officiating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
No,
shift
to
it
me, it
over
wasn't
to
as bad as last week, though, when they got the phantom first down after they spiked it on fourth down, but I already
that
went on
was
that rant.
awful. That
Yeah.
was awful.
That was bad.
But let's shift gears and talk about the defense a little bit. This might have been the most dominant defense performance that we've seen from the Bears this year. And mind you, these are Bear stats. The points against 17.7, which is first in the NFL. 27 interceptions, first in the NFL. They allow 80 rushing yards per game, first in the NFL.
27 interceptions. Last year they had 8.
Their opposing quarterback rating, 72.9, first in the NFL. Number of defensive touchdowns, 6, first in the NFL. So this is not a team that is. It's not like if the Chiefs had a great defensive game and you were talking about it. This is the team that is the best defense in football, hands down. And they arguably had their best defensive performance when they had nothing on the line against a team that had everything on the line on the road.
Yeah. And the thing about Sunday night's game was, I agree, it was probably one of their best defensive performances. It wasn't sexy. You weren't getting a lot of interceptions or, sack fumbles or whatnot, or any pick sixes. You were just flat out stopping them. They just weren't able to do anything or find any sort of rhythm. They didn't get a first down until the second quarter?
Almost, it was at the end of the second quarter.
They were like,
it was.
Sorry, go ahead.
It was they went 3 and out on their first 4 drives.
I mean, it seemed like they were losing more yards than they were gaining.
And Dalvin Cook, who is a running back that was highly touted coming out of the draft. And it's funny is if you just pull tweets and mentions by the NFL, like talking heads, the NFL Network, the beat writers, the ESPNs, the announcers, etc. If you pull comments, tweets, etc. about Dalvin Cook, they are night and day difference depending on who they play. Like the last several weeks, Dalvin Cook coming together, really helping this Vikings team play well, and then plays the Bears. What's wrong with Dalvin Cook? Stop putting this on Dalvin Cook.
Bears just flat out stuffed him.
The Bears made him look silly. He ran for 39 yards, and he was the leading rusher. He ran for 39 yards on 11 carries for a 3.5 yard average. And if you take away his longest run, which is 10 yards, he averaged 2.9 yards a carry. And the second leading rusher for the Vikings was Latavius Murray, who ran for 2 times for 18 yards with a long of 20. So it means the other carry, he got -2 yards. So they just absolutely stopped the run, and they said, go ahead, $84 million quarterback, beat us.
Yeah.
With arguably their best corner or their best defensive back not playing in the game, and they said, beat us. And they couldn't do it.
Quickly speaking of Dalvin Cook, I'm looking at his game log right now. Against the Bears Sunday, his yards per attempt were 3.55. The week before, it was 4.56. The week before was 7.16, so he ran like hell against Miami. And then it was 9.3 against New England in a loss. But then you go back to the first game in Chicago, it was 1.33. So Dalvin Cook has been absolutely stuffed by this Bears defense all year long.
Yeah. I mean, in the Bears defense, you're right. They didn't do anything sexy. They just dominated. And it started off is they were hitting the Vikings wide receivers and they were establishing dominance. They were just intimidating that offense and daring them to do anything. They stuffed the run. They and the thing is you know, there was absolutely nothing sexy about it, but the Vikings just couldn't do anything. And the funny thing is on that second drive, you got an Eddie Goldman sack, which he's been the most unheralded player on this defense all season long. And when Eddie Goldman is getting sacks, your quarterback is in for a long day.
Yeah, Goldman got that sack pretty early in the game.
It was the second Vikings drive. And he is easily the worst pass rusher on that defensive line. I mean, and that's not a knock. It's what he does is he makes the plays easier for everybody else on that line. His number one job is sacks. And he's been unheralded. So when he's able to rush the passer and get sacks, then you are in trouble. You're absolutely in trouble. Yeah, so I mean, this was an absolutely fabulous game. You saw the play calling be run oriented for the most part to aid your young quarterback on the road. Your defense played great. You played them almost the entire game. And it was at the end that they started taking guys out, and the Vikings couldn't score on the Bears' second string defense.
No, I mean, those guys, they played hard. They came in off the bench and they played hard, and Vikings still couldn't solve them. I mean, when the Bears forced them to turn it over on downs the first time, because remember, they did it twice towards the end of the game, the Vikings just looked like they were ready to phone it in. They just looked done. That all the confidence was just sucked out of them. You saw those shots on the sidelines
of Adam Thielen screaming at Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins looking like he just saw a murder happen with the look on his face.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you get beat up by a defense that's much better than your offense. It makes it for a long day.
And you know what?
Go
ahead. I'm sorry. Okay, I was just gonna say, like I said before, to me, outside of the Bills game, it was the road game of the season where it truly looked like the Bears had complete control throughout. And again, the Bills are a bad team, so they were just beating up on a bad opponent. But you saw so many other road games this year, either losses or close, ugly wins where, they started off really slow and they kind of had to dig themselves out of a hole a bit, even just last week against the 49ers. But, in a place they've never won before, and granted, the stadium has not been around very long, but they've never won in the new Minnesota Stadium. And it's one of the hardest places to play in the NFL. You talk about the Superdome, you talk about Lambeau Field. The Vikings Stadium is right up there in toughest places to play. And they were able to completely control that. I thought that was impressive. And that's why I will say that this was the best road game of the year, because anyone could beat up Nathan Peterman and the Bills on the road.
I'll give you that. The only thing that marred this win was you had some injuries. Taylor Gabriel had a shoulder. Anthony Miller left with a shoulder. And I think Roy Robertson Harris had a neck injury. I don't know the status of any of those guys at this point.
Well, it says it sounds like they're going to be okay. So from what I've heard,
I hope.
Nagy says he's not too worried right now, so cross your fingers.
That's my hope. That's my hope. Because if you have, if you have those guys healthy, this is going to be a tough road for the Eagles going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Anthony Miller. Anthony Miller's looked bad. He just is. It was that shoulder that he hurt previously. and he was running, and just kind of
Yeah.
the shoulder gave out.
Yeah, like it popped out or something. It was very weird because there's no contact or anything.
No. Yeah, I'm reading now. Jeff Joniak will know more on status on Wednesday, but feels confident where they are, including wide receiver Anthony Miller, Taylor Gabriel, Roy Robertson Harris, all should be good.
Well, cross your fingers.
Yeah. Let's see if Anthony Miller himself tweeted anything. I like when the player tweets that they're fine.
Mm-hmm. I also do think that if it were more serious, we'd probably hear about it by now. I'm trying to optimistically look at it as no news is good news. I know that's not always the case, but I guess that's just the way I'm trying to optimistically look at it.
Yeah, that's the way I try to look at it too. So we're in the playoffs now. Regular season is completely over. Bears are in the playoffs officially. We know all of the matchups. So the first round, this weekend's rounds, we're going to see the Chargers at the Ravens. We're going to see the Colts at the Texans. We're going to see the Eagles at the Bears and the Seahawks at the Cowboys. And I honestly think this is a pretty good, I mean, for as mediocre as there's been of a season as far as the teams, I think this is about the best parity we've seen in a while with the NFL. There was one point where you thought the Rams and Saints and Chiefs were unbeatable, but you look at the Chiefs, what are they, 0-4 against the top teams? Like they lost to the Rams, they lost to the Chargers, they lost to the Patriots. So it's, they've come down a notch. You saw the Saints get absolutely shut down by the Cowboys. And then for the first half of the next game against Tampa Bay, the Saints got shut down. The Rams lost to the Eagles and they got manhandled by the Bears. So and the Patriots have just been pedestrian for the Patriots. So this is a wide open race. I don't want anybody to think that there's no team that, I don't, if you made me cross off a couple teams, I would say I don't see the Ravens making noise because your quarterback actually has to throw at some point. I don't see the Eagles, but the Seahawks, I could see them because Russell Wilson is a big game guy and they've been playing tough. That Cowboys,
and he's having a great
that
year.
Cowboys,
Russell
that
Wilson.
Cowboys defense is really good. And Ezekiel Elliott, if you can establish the run, I just, Dak Prescott worries you about his ball security. The Rams.
See, right now, I'm really not. I really don't see the Cowboys, knock on wood, in case the Bears have to play them. I don't see the Cowboys doing much. I feel like if you do shut down Ezekiel Elliott, then the Cowboys aren't going to win.
I agree. And if the Bears are to see the Cowboys, it'll be in the NFC Championship in Chicago. So
yeah, it would be at Soldier Field.
I'm not worried about that. But I'm just saying is I could see the Cowboys. They've already beat the Saints. Beat them again? Sure, why not? The Texans, I could see them making to the Super Bowl. Patriots, definitely. Chiefs, definitely. The Chargers, definitely. The Bears, definitely. I would be absolutely shocked if the Eagles or the Ravens made it. And other than those two, you wouldn't surprise me if somebody came from the future and said, this team or this team was in the Super Bowl. If you take away the Eagles and the Ravens. So this is, I think, a very open playoff run, which is great for the Bears because they, I think they have some flaws still, but they're a very good team and defense travels.
Absolutely.
So let's look forward to this first game, which It's funny, if you look at the point spread of the 4 weekend games, I think they're all under 3 points, except for the Bears. It's just under a touchdown. And that's the NFL looking at this game and go, yeah, we don't really see the Eagles having a chance against the Bears in Chicago. And that's kind of the way I look at it is last year, the Eagles, Super Bowl champs, can't take that away from them, played great. This year has been really different. They have played really flat football for a while. Defensively, they could not. I mean, they looked so bad trying to stop the Texans' offense. And the Texans' offense is not that good. They just couldn't stop them at all.
They got a banged up secondary going into this week. So.
They've got a really bad banged up secondary. Is basically if you are able to keep the pressure off of the quarterback, which the Bears offensive line has really been able to do, you can really pick apart that Eagles defense.
Sure. Yeah.
It's they are able to, if they're able to stop the run and get to the quarterback, that's the only chance they have. And they might be able to do it sometimes. I just don't see them being able to do it the whole game. There's too many good, assuming Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, and Anthony Miller are playing, there's too many good receivers for the Eagles to be able to stop. And the Bears offensive line has stood tall. There's no real weak links. And they're going to set a chip if anybody is able to get some pressure, which they might get from Long or Bennett. They'll set a chip, and I think Mitch Trubisky has either room to run, lanes to run, or he's got room, time to throw. That's how I see how things will happen. Bears offense versus the Eagles defense.
Yeah, they got to take advantage of that. Absolutely. I think that one of the keys for this game is going to be just keeping it simple like they have the past few games. Again, take advantage of your matchups, because I think if you keep it fairly simple, you can easily pick that defense apart. I really do.
It's going to be the key, I think, is going to be chipping if you're not able to get one-on-one matchups, win your one-on-one matchups on the offensive line. And that's going to be wait and see. Can Leno stand up against Bennett? Can Massey stand up against Long? I think the guard and center, I think the interior is going to be okay. But if you can protect him on the outside, that's a big key. If not, make sure you chip to help protect him. But the other thing is, don't turn the ball over. No fumbles,
right.
No interceptions. Don't give the Eagles hope when they don't have hope.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. That's why I'd rather just see them play a simpler game like they have the past few games. I think if you minimize your chances of turning the ball over while being effective and moving the ball, I mean, that's what you ideally like, right? I don't think that they're going to be taking too many chances with Trubisky, an inexperienced guy in the playoffs. I think they'd rather keep it more simple. And like I said, you can take advantage of a defense while keeping it simple. We've seen them do that effectively. Because I think if they try to take too many chances, you're going to just risk giving the ball away. And that's the last thing you want to do. I don't think you're going to see any fancy fake punts. I don't think you're going to see Trubisky constantly firing, downfield. You'll probably see him fire downfield, but I mean, just, you're not going to see a whole lot of it. I think you're going to see a lot more of the shorter passing and more run plays. At least that's my guess.
And I'm fine with taking shots down the field when they make sense. Yeah. If you've got single coverage, definitely take your shot, because those defensive backs of the Eagles are not good enough to match up with your wide receivers. So you're just putting yourself in the position of your guy being better than the cornerback and getting the ball, or the defensive back, committing a penalty. That's that's the more probability, is just don't force things into double coverage. Don't force it down the field just to force it down the field.
And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying they're not going to not throw it at all downfield. I'm just saying that they're not going to force it. That was what I was looking for.
Yeah, I think your defense is going to hold strong. I don't think this is going to be a shootout like the Texans-Eagles game was. I think this is going to be a fairly low-scoring game. So you're the Bears, is you just take what the Eagles defense gives you. If you're establishing the run, establish the run, and then make your third down passes. Just get the field position. Force the Eagles to beat you. Don't beat yourself. On the flip side is Nick Foles beats you with short passes. Short passes and utilizing the tight end is you've got to get pressure on him. He's not a mobile quarterback. He's probably, I'm trying to think, he's arguably the least mobile quarterback you've faced all season.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I'm trying to think of who else, because they played Wilson. He's mobile. They played Stafford, who is fairly mobile. You've faced Rodgers.
He can't be mobile, but he just doesn't. He often chooses.
He's not a statue. Mullins is fairly mobile.
Goff. He's not.
I would say Nick Foles is going to be the least mobile quarterback you've faced.
Yeah.
And so those type of guys is you, as a pass rusher, you, instead of when you've got a mobile quarterback, it's a lot harder because you're making moves, trying to get to collapse the pocket, get to the quarterback, but the quarterback moves the pocket, moves out of the pocket, moves around. And if you vacate a lane, will run and take advantage of it. So you've got to be somewhat conservative in what you do, and you've got to be mindful about not making a mistake and not leaving open lanes and things like that. But when you have a statue quarterback like Nick Foles, then you as a pass rusher say, I'm here. You put a spot, which where the quarterback drops back to. I have to get to that spot. And it leaves you a lot more leeway because you can just pin your ears back and go. You're not worried about it. If he starts running, somebody's catching him. He's not running for that. He may get a first down here or there, but he is not going to outrun you. He is not going to run for some 40-yard run. So you just pin your ears back and you go. And that's when you get the strip sacks, because you have a Khalil Mack that's going to that spot. And if he can't see it, he knows where that spot is and he's still going to go there. If he's in the middle of a spin move and gets caught up, he's just going to back up till he gets to that spot. He's putting his arms up, reaching for the ball. That's the types of things you have to do. You've got to make a play. That's the Bears defense. Don't let Nick Foles get in a rhythm, because that's when he kills you. If he gets in a rhythm, he's a very accurate passer. I want to say that when he was quarterbacking for the Eagles the first time, when under Andy Reid, I want to say, didn't he have or was close to the NFL record for most passes without an interception?
He had a nice run going.
So he's a very accurate passer, but his passes are short to medium range and just accuracy, but he needs the clean pocket. And you're going to need Khalil Mack to collapse the one side. You're going to need Akeem Hicks to collapse the center and make him move. Make him throw on the run. Make him throw with, an ogre, hanging on his arm. Don't give him free passes. Let him knock him down. Make sure he knows that you're there, you're coming, and you're going to get to him sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. I think luckily the Bears have faced a whole number of quarterbacks this season, and a lot of these quarterbacks, they've had a similar game plan, like you were talking about, quick passes, not letting the pass rush get to him. So they've seen this kind of thing before. So I think that I could confidently say they won't be caught completely off guard. It's just going to be a matter of execution.
I just hope they're not caught off guard. When teams,
I pray that.
When teams have had success doing that, the Bears have really struggled and taken a lot of time to adjust. So I think they have to go into this game knowing that the Eagles are going to do just that. They're going to try to take advantage of, you're going to see a lot of screen passes. You're going to see a lot of draws. You're going to see a lot of things to minimize the Bears' pass rush because misdirections, sweeps. You're going to see things where it's going to make those defensive pass rushers run farther to get to the play. You're going to try to take advantage of their aggressiveness. And Vic Fangio is going to have to preach, being smart. Is you've got to read when you see a screen pass. If you see that everybody else is rushing in and a back slips behind you, drop back, put your arms up. It's about to be a screen pass. You've got to be ready for that. You got to be ready for him to hit the hot receivers. You've got to watch that tight end. Those are the things. You take those things away, get to the quarterback. It's going to be a long day for the Eagles.
Yeah, they just got to execute on that.
I
hope Khalil Mack has the game-winning sack. That would be awesome.
I hope it's not that close. I heard somebody on the radio saying that they hope it's a close game. Maybe it was Tom Waddle. And they hope it was a close game because he wanted to see a good game. I don't. I want this game.
I love a blowout. I just don't think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, I want to see something like with the Rams with the 49ers where, the quarterback throws 3 interceptions in the first 3 drives. And
it'd be awesome if it was for us, of course.
Yeah, if you want to see the Bears up 21-0 in the first quarter, there's not going to be the number of Eagles fans that as opposed to Bears fans when they're on the road. You're not going to see
Bears
those numbers.
Fans bought all the tickets.
Yeah, you're not going to see those kind of numbers, and you want them to be on the road and go, man, how the hell do we move the ball? What the hell are we going to do? We're in a big hole, and you want to take away all hope. And you want it to wind up like the Vikings game where you just this is hopeless. Leave them infighting with each other because you want to see club dub. Club dub is what you want to see.
Club Dub is the best club in the city by far. Screw all that
It is
other.
the most exclusive club in the city too.
Well, of course, but it's also the most awesome.
Yeah. So, that's the goal is I want to see Club Dub not once, not twice, not 3 times. I want to see Club Dub 4 more times going forward.
Oh, who doesn't?
In this season.
Who doesn't? I'm really looking forward to just watching a playoff game take place at Soldier Field, seeing Chicago Bears fans in full force. And I know that sounds cheesy, but dang it, I'm looking forward to it. I was just waiting for that. But it's gonna be great. It's gonna be so loud too. Okay, I got a few questions to ask you. One of them was a poll I did on Twitter. I'll get to that in a minute. But I got a question for you. I was thinking about this the other day. Do you think that this team is already far more hyped than the team that was previously in the playoffs that was just 1 win away from the Super Bowl? Because I felt like
Absolutely.
I felt like there was very little hype for that 2010 team because I felt like nobody truly believed in that team. And when you look back at that season, I think you could say, wow, the Bears were lucky to get to the NFC Championship in 2010 because the league was just garbage that year. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I remember that season. I remember where I was, the NFC Championship game. Like I just didn't have the hype. I mean, in that game, you feel like the Bears could have won if Cutler stayed healthy, but you just never really felt that your team could do it. You know, there's been a few teams that the Bears have hit along the way, and even the year that they went to the Super Bowl against the Colts, I never really had the confidence in them like I do with this team. And partly is because you just never felt your offense could do something. You felt that they were just going to be so conservative. And if it was 3rd and 10, you were going to just pick up a few yards and then punt. Whereas this team, I feel it's 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20. And I'm like, what the hell? We couldn't get that? I feel the confidence. I feel like the offense can do something. And I feel like it's just like the first time in my life when I really feel confident in the offense, even when they're struggling, even when Mitch is not having a good game or they're not able to establish the run. I just always feel like the offense has an answer somewhere along the way.
You feel like not just the offense, but just any aspect of the Bears. Obviously, the defense is their bread and butter, and if they need a big stop, they can get a big stop. With the offense, you have some confidence they can make a play. You just feel like the team as a whole won't crack like so many teams of the past. Look how many times over the season in a number amount of games, whether it was the Green Bay game, whether it was the San Francisco game, whether it was the final game of the season, it's so many more. You can look at recent Bears teams and say, that team would have just folded after something went south. Like the Packers game. When they turned it over and the Packers tied it, I guarantee you any John Fox, Mark Trestman, or late Lovie Smith Bears team would have just completely fallen apart from there. This team doesn't let things like that get to them. They come right back and they take control back in the game. Look at the game in Detroit. They were getting outplayed through a number of it because the Bears had their backup quarterback in and you just played on Sunday night. So, it was a very short turnaround. But they didn't let things get to them. They were able to overcome and they were able to win. You didn't really see that even with some of the recent teams that made playoff pushes. Like again, the 2010 team, that team never really showed me greatness. They went 11-5 in a pretty piss poor league. They never really showed you what this team has now. And I also feel like this team is probably a lot more likable than that one. That's just, my opinion. But I just think it's amazing you can look at the differences between the last playoff team and this one. And they might not even make it as far as the 2010 team did. But the feeling towards this one is just so different. Because that 2010 Bears team might have been the most underhyped playoff run of any Bears team in my lifetime. And I know there haven't been a lot of them, but yeah, you know what I mean.
You also feel with this team that if you were to get down multiple scores, that you're not out of it. In previous years with the Bears offense, you felt if you get down by 2 touchdowns or more, that it was game over, that you were going to make mistakes on offense trying to come back and make it worse. I'd feel like now that you're going to find a way to claw back. I mean, look at the Giants game.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bears have found a way when they've gotten badly outplayed to come back and compete. And it's, that's part of the confidence in it. When also is, if you remember the Super Bowl year against the Colts, after that game, is the Colts defensive player said, "Oh yeah, we knew what plays the Bears were running." Do you think that would happen with a Matt Nagy coach team, that the opposing team was going to know the plays in the sequence that the Bears were running?
I'm going to guess not. And I also remember hearing a very similar thing last year from the New Orleans Saints in that game in New Orleans. If I remember correctly. I don't think you'll see that again either.
No, you're not going to see that. Is Matt Nagy, he might show you the same formations over and over, but you know what? He's going to run so many different plays out of those different formations that it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to. It's not going to be predictable. You're not going to be able to jump routes. You're not going to be able to do those things that other teams have done in previous years against the Bears offense. And that's where part of the confidence is. I think this is a better defense than we've seen in those previous years. And the offense is better coached and more talented.
Absolutely.
So I guess one more thing I wanted to say is I was thinking after Gabriel left with an injury, Miller left with an injury with the Vikings game, and you were playing with Kevin White and Javon Wims. Look at the situation where you have minimal wide receivers under a John Fox team versus when you have minimal wide receivers under a Matt Nagy team. And it's just night and day difference.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You feel like Matt Nagy is going to find a way to get those wide receivers in position to be open and make catches. With John Fox, you just felt like they were going to get man covered and get shut down because they couldn't get open. And Matt Nagy is going to scheme those guys open if they can't get open on their own with their talent. And it's just, I know there was a lot of people that said, well, Matt Nagy's got more weapons than John Fox did. And that's true. That's absolutely true. But when we start getting apples and apples comparison, when we're playing Bellamy and Wims and Kevin White, then you're like, all right, well, we're starting to get an apples to apples comparison. And you really didn't see a lot of fall off. So
no, you didn't.
It really hammers home how bad things were in the John Fox era and how much better they are now. And it makes you hopeful for how much better it will be once this is year 2, year 3, year 4 in a Matt Nagy offense.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
So, unless you have something else, I want to wrap this up with, what's your prediction for Sunday's game?
Are you looking for a score?
A score and anything else you have.
Okay. Here's my optimistic prediction. I think if all goes well, I think Bears win 27-14. I think that there is going to be a strip sack fumble recovery by Khalil Mack. I think that Allen Robinson and Jordan Howard are both going to get in the end zone. And I think that there is going to be at least one interception. I'm going to go with Kyle Fuller. He's going to haul in an interception. Those are my predictions.
I'm going to go Bears 27-17.
So close to mine.
Yeah, I'm going to go 27-17, and I think Mitch Trubisky throws for 2 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Okay.
So I want to hear from everybody else out there what you think. What do you think the Bears are going to do? We all know they're going to win. So you tell us the score. You tell us, key moments. You tell us things you think are going to happen. We want to hear. Because I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please make sure you hit us up on social media at ChiFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, the TuneIn app. Please hit subscribe. Share this podcast with your friends. If they are Chicago sports fans, please share with them. That's how this podcast grows. Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down